welcome to In the News for August the 5th, 2022. I am Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
And this is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD. Good morning, Brett.
Good morning, Jeff. Hey, do we have iPadOS 16 yet? Is it time yet? iOS 16 yet? No, we don't. And it's good that you pointed out a couple of things that we might not get it for a few more months, which I hope not. But, I can see both sides of this. We want them to wait until it's fully baked, but others say, hey, we need it all to come out at the same time.
Yeah, it's tough. Apple's been through this once before. You may remember 3 years ago in September of 2019, they came out with iOS 13, but just for the iPhone. Yeah. And then a week later, they came out with the iPad iOS 13.1, but it was so full of bugs that it was crazy. It took them, I went back and I looked at my notes, and within a 1 month period, in 2019, they released 5 different versions of iOS because there were just bugs and bugs and bugs. And so, I mean, this is the issue for Apple. They want to release the new,
we've been here before,
iOS 16. Do they release it and then have to release all these bug updates over and over and over again, like they did 3 years ago? Or do they wait for the iPad version to be a little bit more ready? And as I linked to some of the articles, and again, let me just point out, first of all, this is just a rumor that there's going to be a delay.
Yep, good.
Mark Gurman, thank you, at Bloomberg. Having said that, he's usually pretty accurate on these types of predictions, and so it wouldn't surprise me. And if you survey the internet of the people who have been using the beta version of the upcoming iPadOS, some people say, like David Sparks here, that it's looking really good. And then other people, like Federico Vitici over in at Mac Stories, he's in Italy, he said that he's got lots of problems, especially Stage Manager. And the thing is, Stage Manager is a brand new interface for the iPad. And, whenever you have one of these major changes, it takes time to do this. This is not just a new app. So I don't know. I mean, I personally would rather have Apple wait a few weeks and therefore have the version that comes out be ready. But as I pointed out, that causes issues too, because like James Thompson, as I linked to, a developer, says that if a developer has a version of an app that works on both iPhone and iPad, like the one app that's a universal app, it's a problem if you're releasing an app that's not quite ready for the iPad, but it's a mess. So there's no easy solution, but we've been here before and hopefully we'll get through it. So I mean, if any of these rumors are true, I think it does mean we're going to be excited when the new iOS comes out, because it's got some great new features, as we've talked about over the last few weeks, and we'll talk about more today. But it might not all be ready on day one. I mean, it might be a few weeks before everything settles and is ready to go.
Now, to be clear, we haven't heard the same thing about iOS 16 for the iPhone, right?
No,
a lot of people say that's pretty well going.
Yeah, even though it has got major changes for the lock screen too. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to hear rumors of, oh my goodness. But the only ones that I've heard so far is that the lock screen, although it looks great, people are saying that it, one might expect even more widgets for Apple apps to be available in the beta. Now, maybe they'll be ready on day one. They're just not ready in the beta version yet. And of course, because it's a beta version, we don't know what third-party developers are going to do. But everybody's, I haven't really heard reports that the iPhone version is not yet fully baked. It's really the iPad one that you hear people talking about. So,
and a few weeks ago, we talked about Federico Vitici. He did a very good long article on, switching with the new iPad features and specifically Stage Manager. And I thought he did a good job. He seemed like he was very happy with some of the updates there. And in my mind, anything that he said that, could have been potentially buggy, I just kind of marked it up to, well, this is still beta, right? This is why we have that. But he says in this tweet that you linked to that Stage Manager was already buggy in beta 3. And he said it's only gotten worse in beta 4. That doesn't settle very well with me. That doesn't give me as much hope.
One of the specific problems that he's pointed out, and again, these are betas, you don't expect them to work, but you're supposed to be able to plug in an iPad to an external monitor and then have some apps running on the external monitor and different apps on the screen. With Stage Manager, he says all that stuff's really messed up right now. So So we shall see. But again, I'm a lawyer. I write legal briefs. If you look at one of my legal briefs a few weeks before it's ready to be filed, it's a mess. But then when it's time to have the filing date, it looks great. Maybe Apple's got it all ready to go. They just need time to finish it up. So we'll see.
Keep baking that, Apple. That'll be good. Well, speaking of of David Sparks, you mentioned him. He had a great review. I saw this earlier today about the new Anker portable charger. And I saw a couple of other people link to this too, Jeff. I'm glad that you picked it up because for some reason, I think almost every episode you and I talk about some kind of a charger. We are definitely talking about the GAN technology, right, in this. And I saw some others linked to this too, and I thought this was really neat. The Anker 65-watt portable charger. And I like it because it can charge by plugging into the wall, but you can also unplug it, right? And then it can basically be a battery pack as well.
Yeah, that's the trick for this one. I've never owned a hybrid thing like this, but if I remember correctly, Brett, that you do have something like that?
It's similar to that. In fact, it's an old one here. It's RAV Power. Now, it's I guess it's kind of the same thing because it has the plug that I can flip out from the back, and then it actually has a built-in lightning cable so I can plug in my phone. But in the bottom, it does have a USB-A charger, and so I guess I could plug this into the wall and then plug that whatever charging.
But
cable
then it's also
a
portable battery too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can flip up the prongs there, and I can just take this as a portable battery, and that's how I use it all the time. So I guess it is kind of the same idea, but this is much bigger and thicker.
Oh, and that's the thing. So the new
David
stuff
Sparks is talking about
is smaller. So these are great solutions for travel charging. Sometimes you're gonna want to plug into a wall, and sometimes you're just gonna need to have a little portable battery. So why not put two things into one package? I don't own one of these, but I could definitely understand the appeal of it, and people should know about it.
Yeah. Well, and it's $100, right? Again, you and I have been talking about this GAN technology, and this is what this new charger is based on. Both you and I like the Anker products, Anker. This looks like one of the new ones that they're coming out with. And this new technology is a little expensive, I think, still right now, but I expect it to go down. I mean, as more and more people, start using this, and this is going to become the norm, I think, on this. Something to watch out for. But that was a good link that you had there. On the iPhone, we know there's a good camera, and I really enjoyed reading through these tips from Harry McCracken, who is a name that has been around for a long time, very well respected in the world of general technology. And this was a great story that he basically, I think, used his iPhone camera exclusively, right, on a trip or so. And this was some great 6 tips that he shared in this story from Fast Company.
Yeah, Harry's a great, he's been writing great articles. I mean, I want to say since the 1990s, 1980s,
right.
He's been in the industry for a long time. I think maybe he ran PC World at one point or something, or PC Magazine, one of them, but he's been around forever. So, but the thing is, he had a nice, his nice big camera, but he decided, for a long period of time, what was he say, 6 months, 9 months, that he would just put the Nokia camera to the side and rely solely on the iPhone. And he came up and he still took really great pictures. But in the process, as somebody who had really thought about photography, it made him come to some suggestions and stuff like that. And we can just run through a couple of them. I mean, one of them he pointed out is that all of the traditional things that you think about for a camera apply to the iPhone as well, which means
I like that.
Holding it steady. We think of the phone as just being something casual that you pull it out and you grab a picture. But he's like, just like a real camera, if you take the time to really hold it steady, you can get better pictures. And he also points out in another tip that one of the problems of the iPhone is the ergonomics. I mean, it's not made to be a camera. So something that's a dedicated camera is made to hold in your hand. But the iPhone, you can do things like press the volume button on the top to take a picture. But when you press that button, sometimes you will move the camera just because you're pressing the button.
That's right.
And that makes it a little bit more shaky. Of course, he talks about composition tips and stuff like that too, which are true no matter what you're talking about. But some of his other good tips include like going in the settings to, make sure that you're taking the right types of pictures and filters. Taking a lot of pictures and video can be a battery drainer, which is definitely true, which is why you might want to have one of these MagSafe portable things to stick on the back of your iPhone, like I've talked about in the past. But he's got some nice advice in here. I will tell you, I'm getting to the point. We had this trip. I mentioned recently that my wife and I went to Italy last month. Yeah. And of course, we took a lot of pictures, right? But the way that we did it is, for the most part, I took all of the pictures with my iPhone 13 Pro. They came out great. And my wife used our Nikon DSLR camera, and she took great pictures too. And sometimes we actually would, just because we're both taking pictures in the same place, you're taking, the same picture with two cameras. And so as I was looking at the pictures and going through them recently, it was interesting because sometimes the iPhone did a better job. It just did a better job with color and everything else. And even though I could adjust the Nikon pictures with Photoshop and stuff, I still really liked the way that the iPhone made the pictures look. But then other times especially for like extreme zoom situations, because we have a super zoom lens on that of like 200 millimeter. There's no comparison between what you can get close up with the Nikon camera. But I will tell you, overall, I found that the iPhone pictures in some ways were overall better than the Nikon.
Really?
And this is a big question for us, because although we use that camera during our trip, it's got some issues and it needs to be replaced. And the question that my wife and I were asking ourselves is, do we replace it?
Right.
Nowadays you don't even buy SLR cameras anymore. Nikon no longer makes SLR cameras. It's all mirrorless cameras. And so the question is, do you want to spend, $800 to $1,000 on a really nice camera, but it's going to be bigger and stuff like that, and it's going to take great pictures, but the iPhone camera is already so good, and this year it's going to be better, and next year it's going to be better, and the year after that it's going to be better.
Right.
And so it's a really, really close call as to whether it's worth having a fancy camera. So
yeah. I think unless that you do photography for a living, if you are a professional, I find that line between, should you just get a very good iPhone, which I think is one of the best that has the cameras on it, or do you try to spend for another camera? I feel like that line is just blurring more and more and more. Like it's not worthwhile unless you really know what you're doing. Otherwise, I feel like the iPhone is just going to continue to get better on that. But anyway, this was a great story. I'm glad that you linked to it.
Makes you think.
From the iPhone on photography, you can also use the iPhone to control things in your home. You can't do that with an SLR camera, right? You had 3 stories here that were pretty good. You and I like to talk about some of this HomeKit stuff and some of the home automation things. This is one from Wemo, the Smart Dimmer, which I thought was neat because they mentioned neutral not required, right? Which means that it can be used even in some older homes.
That's nice. And so you can replace the switch that's on your wall, your current dimmer switch, with this. And so somebody can walk up to this Wemo and they can touch the buttons and make the light come on and off and change it and dim it with this. But because it also works with HomeKit, then suddenly it's available for you to remotely control the light or set it up on automations that lights automatically come on and off when certain things happen. And because it works with Thread, you can actually use it to extend the signal throughout your house. So if you have a series of Thread things, they sort of create this mesh network. So I thought this product looked interesting. It really hits a lot of the buttons. As I mentioned in my post today, I still think right now that the Lutron Cassetta products are an overall better deal, because Lutron has its own proprietary network that no other manufacturer has, that it uses for each of its devices to communicate with each other, and it works great and it gets fantastic reviews. But to use the Lutron stuff, you do need to get a hub, which I forget how much that costs. I'm sure it's like $100 or something like that. So if you're going to do a whole bunch of lights in your house, then it's worth the investment for the hub. But if I had a house that I only had a single wall switch that I wanted to put a HomeKit dimmer on, and I knew that there weren't going to be any more, well, then it might be overkill to invest in the Lutron system. Maybe pick up one of these new ones from Wemo. So it's nice to see more and more options. And again, we continue to be on the cusp of Thread products are coming out. The Matter standard is coming out. Where all things are changing.
Yeah. Well, that's a dimmer for lights inside the house. You also had a neat link to Jason Snell talking about a dimmer for his outdoor patio lights. I thought this was cool.
I've looked for this in the past. I mean, for many years, Brett, I think there were only 2 or 3 manufacturers, 2 or 3 more mainstream manufacturers of outdoor HomeKit lights. There was also some sort of no-name, brands from China that you don't know how well they work. But I had reviewed one years ago called the iHome, which I've used for a number of years now, and it's been great. I mean, I have lights outside my house, as so many people have lights outside their house now because set them up during the pandemic and stuff like that.
Trend.
Exactly, and it's so nice to just be able to be inside your house, where you just walk outside and you can talk to Siri and you can turn the lights on and off, and isn't that great? But mine has actually been having some issues over the last couple of weeks that I try to talk to it, and the lights don't come on and off. And at first I thought that because it's an outdoor plug, I thought maybe that, how like the outdoor plug can get water in it and it sort of blows or whatever, and you have to go press the button to reset it. But when I walk up to my iHome unit and I click, there's also a button on the side of the unit. If I press the button on the side of the unit, it totally turns all the lights on and off. So clearly it's getting power. It's not that the outlet is having a problem. It's just not communicating with HomeKit. And so I need to investigate it more. But what Jason Snell pointed out in his post is, unlike in the past where all we had were these on-off switch, he found one that is also a dimmer switch. And it's just the first one I've seen. It seems like such an obvious idea. Why wouldn't you have an outdoor dimmer HomeKit? And yet for years we haven't had it. And so this company called Miros, which I have seen before, so they have some reputation. They make a whole bunch of different products. Some of them have 3 outlets. Some of them have 1 outlet. Some of them work with Amazon Alexa. A few of them work with HomeKit, but not all of them. So, but if you figure out what you want, do I need 1 plug? Do I need 3 plugs? You know, what technology do I need? You can find what you need. The specific one that Jason used, I didn't see it on Amazon yet, but you can get it from the Miros website. And it wasn't that expensive.
It's only $30.
$30. Yeah, so no, you only get 1 outlet, although that would be enough for me. And so if I can't solve my iHome problems, then we will all be reading a review on iPhone JD in a few weeks of this product, because I will probably get it, but hopefully I can make what I have right now work.
Interesting. One more link that you had was to the Eve Motion 2. What is this? A motion and light detector. We've talked about some of these before. But
we talked about this specific product 2 weeks ago when it was first announced. And the reason I linked to this review is, was this Andrew O'Hara? I forget who wrote this one. It's a really comprehensive review of, Andrew did a great, he writes great articles, and he did a really comprehensive review. So if you are at all interested in a motion detector, you know, his review addresses every aspect of it, the size, how it works, what's good about it, what's bad about it. And so it was just nice to see a hands-on review from someone who knows what they're talking about.
Jeff, what are you watching on Apple TV Plus these days? We haven't talked about this in a while, but you had several great links today, which I thought were great. And I'll go first and tell you quickly. You mentioned this, that I've been telling my wife we looked for a show. Slow Horses. Oh, what a great show. So the only downside is there was only 6 episodes. We're like, wait, we want more. Well, I mean, it ended nicely. I appreciate the ending. You know, like they tied up the loose ends, but it was like, no, I want to follow these characters a little bit longer.
Well, you know, you're not going to have to wait very long, because when they filmed, I don't know if you know this, but when they filmed season 1 of it, the same actors, they filmed season 2 back to back. So season 2 has already been filmed. It was filmed the same time as season 1. And they're just editing it.
I remember that.
Yeah. So it'll be coming out soon. But I agree, there were fantastic actors in it. It was a great spy thriller. It's a short, compact little story, but there'll be another season 2. So that's a great one. This article from Entertainment Weekly that you're showing, you know, the best Apple TV Plus shows to watch right now, has a bunch of great ones in here. I mean, things like Severance, which has been getting so many award nominations, and Slow Horses, as you just mentioned, and you know, it's not just the Ted Lasso stuff, but there's some great ones in here. The one that I've been loving is Mythic Quest is a good one. The For All Mankind, which is the futuristic space one.
I haven't started that yet.
Today,
that's my next one.
Oh, you've got so much great stuff in front of you. So we're in season 3 right now, and the second to last episode of season 3 was released today. And I actually watched it late last night with my son, because it comes out at like 11 o'clock Central, 12 Eastern. So we stayed up late and watched it, and it's so good. And it's one of these, let's just say that if you're watching the show and you haven't watched this episode yet, you know, the last 2 minutes of the episode is one of those oh my god moments. So now we can't wait to find out what happens in the season finale. All right, it's just such a great show. So anyway, a nice list here. And the other one that I mentioned today is, I've heard great things about Blackbird, which I think is like a drama that takes place in a prison. I know it's one of the last TV shows that stars Ray Liotta, who unfortunately passed away recently. I don't think he has a big role in it, but I've heard great things about it. And Pachinko is also one that I've heard fantastic things on. I have on my short list to check it out. But there's a great things on here. Dickinson, you're showing right now, is a really quirky, fun show. Yeah. Well, for the kids, we've been seeing Apple talk about this. It's a movie called Luck, and an animated movie, and it even, like you said, it takes over the this is cute, the cat's falling through the as you scroll through the Apple page. That's so cool. They show up in all the things. I see that. So I'm just scrolling down through the apple.com, and sure enough, they've taken it over. This is so cute. Cute I stuff. Love this. Okay, well done. I've heard good things really about Luck as a movie. It's supposed to be a cute cartoon. It's sort of in the spirit of a good Pixar cartoon, which is no accident, because to get into controversy a little bit, John Lasseter, who was the genius at Pixar, but who also had these really horrible allegations of misconduct and stuff, he left Pixar and went to this other company. Is it called Skydance maybe, or something like that? Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember. he's behind this movie, so it's somebody who knows what they're doing in the area. But anyway, sort of a troubled history. But if you put that aside, just in terms of the movie itself, it looks like a cute cartoon, so a cute animated film. So I may have to check it out.
Let's go to some Apple stores
Okay.
from the past or the present. First of all, I have to say, I very much enjoyed your pictures from your trip. In fact, I got one in my background here. So you had a post where you were showing the pictures that you took when you and your wife were in Italy not too long ago. And of course, as you know, as you want to do in the romantic cities of Milan and Bologna, right? You're going to go to the bar, you're going to have some time, and you're going to go visit the Apple stores, because why not? They're worthwhile. They're worth going to. But I love these pictures that you did.
And they're right there. You know, they put these stores in the heavily trafficked, populated areas.
Right, of course.
So you really can't help. I mean, I admit that we went off the beaten path maybe 2 blocks to get to this one, but it's the area that we were in anyway. But this Apple Store Milan is a beautiful flagship store. It's, again, it really reminds me of the Apple Store Fifth Avenue. It's got a glass rectangular cube
it's
on
not
top of
quite
it.
the cube,
but the same idea. It's got a public area on top of it. The store itself is underground, so it really does harken back to a lot of the stuff in Fifth Avenue. So it's a very nice looking store, and it's great that we have all these flagship stores. So I took pictures of this one in Milan, and then just a smaller one that we were in Bologna, Italy. But neat stuff. Oh, and then of course I also included a couple travel tips for the next time you go to Milan.
No joke. Too. This looks. I'm so hungry now. Oh my goodness, look at that. The little the almonds and everything. Well, I'm glad that you were talking about that and you showed some of those pictures, because something came out this past week and you did a great job explaining it. This is called it's an app for the Mac called Apple Store Time Machine, and I'll let you describe it, Jeff.
Yeah, Michael Stieber wrote for, I think it was 9 to 5 Mac for many, many years, and one of the beats that he covered was Apple stores. So he knew everything about all the Apple stores ever since the beginning of time. And so as sort of a labor of love, he thought it would be cute to create a virtual version using the same software that people might use to make a video game, like a first-person video game that you walk around.
Like a rendering.
Exactly. So instead of making it a video game where you're fighting the bad guys, you just walk around, and he has recreated all the way down to the exact boxes that you used to see in these stores, the actual products. And so he's recreated 4 famous stores. The very first one that opened in Tyson's Corner, Virginia in 2001, which is a suburb of the Washington, D.C. area.
2001.
Amazing. Can you imagine they've been out for over 20 years?
20 years.
Then he has one that was opened in 2004 in Stanford. And this was at the time when Apple was moving into shopping malls. Many shopping malls didn't have space for a larger store, but they would have these sort of small storefront areas in the malls. And so Apple showed that you could make a very compact, simple Apple store, even in a very small space. I don't think they build these anymore, but at the time it was a way for Apple to get more of these stores and more of these Apple stores and more shopping malls. Then the next one they have is the iconic Fifth Avenue store, which we'll come back to in a second. And then the last one was the store at Apple Infinite Loop, which is, it's not the like right now, if you go to Apple's campus in California, they have the fancy new store, which is part of the new campus next to the spaceship looking building. And that's really nice. That's not what this is. What this is a store that was part of Apple's original campus, which Apple calls Infinite Loop. And I visited it before they changed it. It used to be a place that you could just sort of go and get t-shirts and stuff like that. And then in 2015, they turned it into more of a traditional Apple store. And that's what this is. So, but it's nice to go through this time machine, because as you walk through these different stores, you literally see what products was Apple selling and promoting back in 2001, back in 2004, even back in 2015. And so that's great fun. Of the 4 of them, though, the most detail and attention and love clearly went into the Apple Store the Fifth Avenue. And this one really,
the glass cube.
This one just, pulled all the strings for me, because I had been living in New York City right after Hurricane Katrina. So my wife and I lived there for about 8 months. And so since I was in New York City, and Apple was opening up that store in, I think it was like
Why
May
not?
of 2006. Like, why not? So I got there early in the morning and waited in line, and there were hundreds of people, just like, you know, we used to have for these, you know, like when iPhones went on sale, it used to be these long lines, and it was just so much fun, you know, being there and seeing all the people that was there, being part of the excitement. So I shared a couple of these pictures. This was one that I sort of took, you know, just you can see all the crowds that were in that store that day.
So many people there.
You can barely even
the
see
spiral
the
staircase and everything.
Very, very, very cool.
Wow.
And the store has actually changed since then. They renovated the store recently.
Yeah,
to actually make it taller. Like I think they put they lowered the floor so that the ceiling looks a little bit higher, and they've changed it. They also have changed the cube itself that I had some pictures of.
Right.
Actually looks different today, because Apple took down the old cube and replaced it with a version that uses even fewer panes of glass than they did originally.
Right.
So so they've changed the stores over the years, but this is a cool store. It's you know, brings in a ton of money for Apple.
Wait, there's another photo of here that you linked to. This is you standing in front of it, I believe. Is that right?
So there was
there you are. Yeah, Apple, there's the cube. Okay, there's the cube.
You can see the cube. Apple actually set up a camera that they did a time-lapse video that was on the Apple website. And so over the course of like 12 hours, but I just, one of the still frames of this time lapse was me just saying, I wonder what this camera is. And so you can see all the crowds that are around us and stuff like that.
I'll just quickly say, I wasn't there for the opening day because I want to hear a little bit more about that, Jeff, but I have visited this store because I used to go annually right downtown New York for a legal technology conference. And this would be my like getaway. I would go walk, I think 5 blocks, and go to this cube. It was a sight to behold. I mean, there was nothing else like that I even knew architecturally. You know, the fact that it was like a technology hub, and just the fact that this gleaming cube was like coming out of this concrete on Fifth Avenue was just amazing to me. And then you went down, and it was kind of cave-like there. I think you're right. They've renovated it a little bit. But it was just, I mean, it was sort of my Mecca, right? It was like my little journey to go, and it was just so awe-inspiring. So I went several of those years after it opened. I was not there opening day, and I regret that, but you were, which is so cool.
And so that was fun. You know, it's interesting because, I mean, this is Fifth Avenue. Could not be more glamorous of an address. This is the corner of Central Park, you know, so in an area that's got so many interesting things and so many interesting buildings, to come up with something that's going to be, oh yeah, you think there's stuff around us is interesting? Right. We're going to show you interesting. I mean, you got to love, you know, the architects that came up with this. I mean, now, you know, of course we see a glass cube in a place like Milan. We're like, well, of course, yeah, it's another glass cube. But when this first came out, this was really, you know, just inspiring and amazing architecture. And it looked amazing during the day. It looked even cooler at night with the lights on it and stuff like that. So neat stuff.
Big glowing apple sort of hanging there. But, you know, to your point quickly, you know, everybody wants to build bigger, better buildings. And it was just so almost like an understatement, literally, because it was underground. I mean, it's just so weird that like to your point, they just did something so unique with this prime real estate, you know, that went underground, and it was just this little glass cube, but it was such a crowd pleaser for sure. So, do you have any other pictures?
I sent you a few other pictures that I haven't linked to on my website, but for folks that are watching the video version of it, I'll just go through a couple pictures that were fun.
Let's switch over.
So hopefully first of all, everybody that was anyone in New York. So this is David Pogue, who at the time was a reporter for the New York Times, and he still writes for the New York Times nowadays. He's worked for a bunch of news agencies. He does CBS Sunday Morning News and stuff like that. He was outside, and so he was just walking the line, and he and I chatted for a while and stuff.
So cool. But by the way, I remember specifically he did like a video that day, right, Jeff? He was like on a piano. He made some kind of a Broadway song or something.
Okay, so what you're thinking about is not the day that the store opened, but the day that the first iPhone was announced in 2007.
iPhone, that's right. Okay,
which was a few years after this, and he recorded it in front of the glass cube.
In front of the cube. Okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
It's a fantastic video. It's so funny because he was one of the first people to have an early version of the iPhone. So this is a few years before he recorded that video. The next one here just shows that Apple had invited a lot of stars to come. They wanted to have celebrities show up at the store, and so I just happened. I looked to my right and I was like, "Hey, that's actor James Woods."
Hey,
and then,
that's him.
Just hanging out in the store. This is a cool view of how neat the building looked at night and stuff. Ron Johnson is
really
the guy at Apple who was
there you
responsible for the creation of the Apple Store. And
you
so
got all kinds of selfies
Ron
that
Johnson,
day.
so we were talking for a while about it. That was sort of fun. This next one is just all the people online were so enthusiastic. These two women were in front of me in line, and they had the apples, tattooed on their faces.
I was going to say, are those tattoos? Hopefully they're just face painting.
Hopefully
because,
they're just temporary. Suffice it to say, there was a lot of enthusiasm online, and every hour they were giving away things, Apple laptops and stuff. This one says on it, so this was the 8 p.m. giveaway. We know what your next entry in your blog is going to be.
It's going to be right.
This is a white. I'm trying to think of what computer that is. Brett, that would be a.
It's got to be a MacBook Pro.
I think it's an iBook, but it's a white. I think they still have the iBook back then. I think this is a white iBook, not the original iBook, the one that sort of looked like a toilet seat and had the real colors.
Yeah, right.
I think this is a white iBook. Everybody that was there on the opening day, at least the first couple thousand people, got a T-shirt, as Apple still does with its store openings. And this is just a picture of the color.
You got one?
This was the front of the T-shirt, which had sort of a representation of the design,
of the cube,
and the rest of these you could sort of flip through, just showing the crowds.
But that cube, man, I mean, just so great looking at that. When all there, it's there inside, and I remember this was the sort of the first time that I personally remember, sort of like the blonde table, right? The blonde wood table. I don't know what wood it is, but just when you walk into an Apple store now, that's what you expect, and they're so clean. There's not a whole lot on there. I mean, there's a lot of people around this table, but look at those. That's like the black iBook or the MacBook. I remember.
Yeah.
Look at those iPods. The table
there is
too.
The original.
That's one of those.
That's the original
airport?
Wi-Fi. Airport, exactly.
Wasn't
the original airports.
Yeah, one of the airports.
Back when Wi-Fi was a new thing.
That's so great. I love that.
Anyway.
And there's
little pictures.
And this was a spiral staircase, but in the middle, didn't the middle hold the elevator? Is that right?
Yeah, you can still see it. It's right between it there. There's an elevator.
Yeah. That was so cool. I always try to take the stairs if I can, but I wanted to ride this elevator when I went. I didn't get a chance to. But I remember even the stairs, Jeff. I mean, they're all glass. Like, I remember going down the stairs and like, is this going to crack? Like, I'm going to fall. Like, it's just crazy. Today we sort of take that for granted because we've seen it so many times, but those are some great pictures.
So, I mean, we're showing some fun pictures here because I was there on opening day. But again, the reason we got into this in the first place, you can pretend like you were there on opening day by, if you have a Mac, download this app and you can walk through the cube. I mean, walk through the store without all the people, but see all of the products. You can get up close to them. There's little Easter eggs in this app that, like, sometimes when you're walking in front of the computer, you'll actually see that the computer has a video running on it, like maybe one of the Apple famous ads, like
that in the little
I'm a Mac ad or something like that. And so there's all sorts of little details and tidbits, and it's a fun way to walk down memory lane, walk through a time machine, literally. So and the app's free, so download it, play with it, have fun with it.
And you did link to a really, I think maybe a 2-minute video or so from our friends at Mac Break Weekly,
just showing it
off, where Leo and the gang are talking about it there. So if you wanted to see it a little bit more, you can do that. Fantastic. I love it. I mean, I hope everybody enjoyed that. That was a little bit of a walk down memory lane, but so much fun on that. Let's get to some in the know tips really quick. I have one today. It's on the iPhone. And I just recently did this. I can't remember exactly how that I stumbled on it, but I was nervous about setting my phone down in a public area. Not like because I was going to walk away or anything, but there were other people around, and sometimes notifications pop up, and you can control that. You can control what notifications pop up for you from your calendar or from different news services, etc. But I was exploring a little bit, and I found that you could turn off things on the lock screen specifically. So this isn't specific to notifications. It's not specific to maybe phone calls, but the point that I'm getting to, if I wanted to lay my phone down and, if somebody came up and tapped on the screen when a notification came on, in some cases it would show a little more information about it, or they could see who the message came from, that kind of a thing. Well, I found that you can go into your settings on the iPhone and you can go down to an option that is literally called Face ID and Passcode. This is where typically that you would go in and you would make a change to your passcode if you wanted to do that, or you could use it to add a face or a fingerprint if you have Touch ID on here. But if you go into that page, there's actually quite a number of settings down here. First of all, you can use Face ID for certain things, but specifically, I was going to let people know, if you scroll down to the bottom of that section, there is a little section called Allow Access to when locked. And you can toggle some of these settings on and off. For example, I turn off Control Center. In other words, I don't want to be able to access the Control Center from the lock screen, just in case I'm looking at the phone, or, somebody can get access to that. I do leave the Notification Center on because I'm just not usually in a place where I care about that quite as much. Mm-hmm. But for example, I turn off Wallet. I turn off Return Missed Calls. So this is under Settings, Face ID, and Passcode. And if you scroll down, you can turn off some of the things just to make your phone a little bit more safer, so that things cannot be accessed from the lock screen. Now, the only thing that you can't turn off, I believe, I haven't found a way to do this, is the camera. In other words, even if you, the only thing you can get access to from the lock screen, you can swipe to the left or tap and hold on the button on the bottom, and the camera will pop up. Now, you can't get to pictures, you can't get to anything else from there, but the camera will come up. As far as I can tell, you can't turn that off, but it would be worthwhile. Go in and look at the things that you are allowing when your screen is locked, and you can turn off some of those things just to make it a little more private, or, just so that you can be aware that you can turn off some of the things like the Notification Center or the Siri or access to your wallet, etc. So that's my tip for today.
It's a very timely tip for people to be thinking about this, so that you're making conscious decisions, but also because, as we've discussed, when iOS 16 comes out this fall, Apple is making the lock screen a lot more feature rich. You're going to have a lot more information on there. Right. And so, as cool as it is to be able to access all that info without even opening your phone, it's going to cause everybody to go through the same process that you're describing here, Brett, of thinking of the security implications. It's useful to show my emails on the front of my phone, but am I concerned about somebody just looking at the front of my phone and seeing an email without logging in? So it's something to think about, and it's something that I know that I'm going to be thinking about this fall with the brand new lock screen. So it's nice to think about these things and go through the mental process of thinking about it.
Your turn, Mr. Jeff.
So back in 2005, Apple introduced a computer called the Mac Mini, which they still make today, and people love their Mac Minis. One of the key features when it first came out was that you did not have to buy a new screen or a new mouse or a new keyboard. You could use all of that stuff and simply replace the computer. And so it was particularly attractive for people switching from Windows, because maybe they already had that other stuff and they didn't need to buy a new monitor. So they didn't need to have an iMac that has the monitor built in. And so when Steve Jobs introduced it, he had this acronym of, B, like BYOB, bring your beer. It was BYODKM. So bring your own display, keyboard, and mouse. So that acronym was in my brain this weekend, this past weekend, because my wife went up to New York to visit her mom, and her mom has an old Mac Mini that really needed to be replaced. And so we bought her a new one, which is great. So she's now got like an M1 Mac Mini that frankly is faster than my home computer, although she'll never take advantage of that. But anyway, so all that my wife needed to do was swap out the old Mac Mini for the new Mac Mini and use Migration Assistant, which is this great thing that Apple has to move her data from the old computer to the new computer. Easy peasy, right? No, because here's the problem, is that it didn't even occur to me at the time, but when you use Migration Assistant, which is a really nice product, during the process, when you start Migration Assistant sort of takes over the screen of the old computer and takes over the screen of the new computer, and it handles transferring everything over. So it makes things easy for you. But during the process, there are times when you need to click on certain things and type certain things like a password on the old computer or the new computer. And if you're switching between computers that like laptop computers that have a keyboard and a screen built in and a mouse built in and a trackpad built in, that's fine. But since my wife wanted to use the same keyboard and the BYODKM, she wanted to use the same display on the old one and the new one, the same keyboard, which was a wireless keyboard, a wireless Apple keyboard, the same wireless mouse. This became a problem because although the display itself, she could physically unplug it and plug it into the other one and go back and forth, which was fine. But when you had to type something on the old one and you have a Bluetooth keyboard connected to the new one, how do you get that Bluetooth keyboard to temporarily connect to the old one? There's no way to do it. If she had a corded And this was my tip. If you have a keyboard with a cord, well, sure, plug the keyboard with the cord in. You can move that back and forth.
Right.
But you can't do it wirelessly because Migration Assistant takes over the screen. And so you can't get to the system preference to pair the new keyboard. It's like, oh, what do you do? So here's how we got around it. And again, if you have a corded mouse and a corded keyboard, well, then you can avoid all of this.
Right.
But what do you do if you're in a pickle and you don't have these things? Goodness. So here's what we did for the, I'll talk about the mouse first. For the mouse, the trick is this. Apple's wireless Bluetooth mouse. If you flip it upside down, it has a little USB-C, or no, it's a lightning. It's a lightning port in the bottom that you can use to charge it, right? If you want to pair the mouse with a new computer, if you plug in the lightning cord to the old computer and then stick that lightning cord into the bottom of the mouse, it will tell the mouse, I want you to pair with this computer. And so it's basically a way to almost make it like a corded mouse. But it took us forever to figure this out. So then she would have to plug that in, pretend like she's charging it, unplug it, and then use the mouse, then go to the new computer, plug it in to connect it. But I mean, I took forever to figure this out. That's one thing. Display. But then the keyboard, how do we switch the keyboard between the two? And so here's what we did. We figured out is we can't. There was no way to do it, but there was a workaround. And it's thanks to a feature that Apple has for accessibility called the accessibility keyboard. It is possible to have a completely on-screen keyboard. And for certain people with certain accessibility issues, maybe they need an on-screen keyboard because maybe maybe they're not controlling a keyboard with their hands. Maybe they're like using their eyes to like point to specific, you see systems like that. And so if you turn, what we did is we turned on the accessibility keyboard on the old Mac Mini. And so that way, since my wife had the mouse, as we just described, she could then click and point to specific keys to do things like type in the password. And then we kept the keyboard connected to the new computer. So these two workarounds of using the charging cord and using the accessibility keyboard, now that I've described them, simple, easy peasy, anyone can do it. It took us about 3 hours to figure these two solutions out. So again, keep in mind, if you're ever helping a loved one with a Mac Mini and with the, with Migration Assistant, again, avoid all of these problems by just bringing your own, mouse and keyboard with a cord. But if you really have to do it, you actually can do it. And I will tell you that it was a happy result because once her mom got the new computer with the new speed and everything like that, she was so thrilled. And, she may be surfing the internet as you and I are talking right now. So it was a happy ending for all. But figuring out this little hack took a while.
I have used the accessibility keyboard, not for that extreme scenario necessarily, Jeff, but in some cases, I do remember I've worked with somebody that it was a Mac Mini. I think it was the same kind of a thing. And it didn't kind of boot up all the way so that the keyboard was ready. Although many times Apple is very good about that. It will pair pretty quickly. But for whatever reason, I can't remember. I couldn't get access to it, but it's easy. Apple does a great job of giving you the ability to bring up this accessibility keyboard. And it's a little slower because you're hitting like one little key at a time. But if that's all that you have to like do the continuation, to get through the password or set up Wi-Fi or something like that, it is worth knowing. So that's
in fact, even if you have a laptop computer, if for some reason your keyboard breaks one day and you still need to operate it, hold this up, and this will be in a pinch. You could use this as the keyboard instead of the built-in keyboard. So
that is a great tip. Well, thanks, Jeff. And thanks for sharing some memories. That was a lot of fun. I love the pictures on there. Walk down memory lane, walk down memory cubes. Indeed. It's very good. All right, Jeff. Great talking with you, my friend, and we'll talk with you next week.
Thanks, Brett. Bye-bye, everybody.